Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Jungle and the Gardener on the most important conversations. I'm here with my co-host, Jenna Smith, and we are talking about belief as it relates to relationships today. And not just relationships that you might be in with other people, but even the relationship to yourself, which is, as Jenna always points out, the first and most important relationship that you have is with yourself. So this sounds like, what are they talking about? Beliefs. Well, beliefs are everything. Beliefs dictate your behavior, dictate your actions, dictate what you think, and they're usually quite under the surface. Most people don't know what they believe or why they believe what they believe, even if they knew what it was that they believed. And in the realm of relationships, our beliefs are governing the nature of our relationships, because they're governing the nature of our behavior. They're governing what we say. They're governing what we do. They're governing how we interact with that significant other or the person you're dating or whatever the scenario is. And so we're just going to have a brief introductory conversation about beliefs as it relates to relationships today. But this is something that's probably going to come up several times as we continue to kind of talk about the different topics. We're kind of laying a bit of groundwork here that your beliefs are determinative of the nature and quality of your relationship. So I'm going to pause there. Jenna, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so we just started off talking about how I just did a video on the unilateral decisions we make in our own head. So it's like, oh, this won't work because it's long distance. Oh, I don't have enough time. I'm focused on this. Like, we'll make these unilateral decisions. So I'm going to talk about the word decision first. We make a decision, but then the more you think about it, it will become a belief. This is true. Clearly, I can't do this because of this, or clearly this won't, clearly we can only do a short-term relationship because X, Y, Z. So it's the stuff you come up with, the stuff you land on as what's true.
Yeah. Well, and what's crazy about that is it's not just what we come up with. If we think about it, our beliefs are shaped by the movies we watch, books we read, the narratives that our friends or people we know share with us about, oh, I was dating this guy, or I was dating this girl, and it was awful. They were like this, and this. And suddenly in the back of our mind, we have this belief starting to take shape about people who are like that. And then what we talked about before, the all important, but yet completely meaningless and useless list, the list that we create.
Still think lists are good for clarity, but then you still need to let it go.
Well, what I would say is the list is showing you what your beliefs are. So that could be
the clarity of what you're willing to tolerate, what you want to have more of. Because I think when you're dating, when we talked about dating, and I talk about Mario coins and what you're going to get from the dating experience, that's going to make you more you, but you have to let it go. You have to so beliefs are things you won't let go, but it's true. It's true that
it's true for you.
That's the point, is the belief. Yeah. Someone's belief is what they think is true. So a big one I see with relationships is, I need you to agree with me in order to feel heard. Not, here's what I believe. That person can listen to you and say, I hear what you're saying. But the person thinking it might really need to be agreed with, which is fundamentally a flaw, because we all have the right to our own free will. So to need to be agreed with in order to be heard, that belief is going to be a problem. Because you just always need to be agreed with in order to be validated. You know what I mean? So I'm just giving an example of a really strong belief I see in some people.
So if I was playing the game so first of all, if I think about beliefs in the context of relationships, for most people, the beliefs were probably shaped first and foremost by observing their parents in relationship. And then, when you believe something, the effect of confirmation bias is going to start to tick into place, right? I believe this, and therefore I see more of what I believe, and that reinforces this must be true. But think about how almost nefarious that is in a way, because you have this belief and then you only see that, but the rest of experiential reality in the course of relationships is now outside of your view. You can't see that anymore. Right. And in fact, most people will only see something that's not their belief when it is confronting their belief. Therefore, they get to reject it. again, right? And then that just reinforces the belief even more. So coming back to lists, when I think of lists, I would play the game of, this list is a list of my beliefs, not a list of truths. And then it becomes a game of, why do I believe these things? And that can be an inquiry. And the game could be, I'm going to do the opposite of my list to have an experience of something outside of my beliefs and expand my horizon of what's possible. You could play that game.
You could. Most people don't know themselves well enough to play that game, because it would just be us. It'd just be like, oh, I'm like dating all over the place. But the other thing is, you could know, what do I make this mean? Right. So like, take the list. What do I make this mean? They need to be, some of the things on the list could be responsible for their emotions, good relationship with their family, or like, things that don't necessarily, but what do I want? Harmony. What are you trying to get from that? Good weekend experiences, because when I dated this person, their family was all at odds with themselves, and I didn't want all that drama. So like, while you're dating, you're starting to know your own truth through experience. So both experiments would be potentially helpful if you know how to like navigate as yourself while you're trying it. Because if you're just like opposite day, you could kind of lose yourself. So you do need to have your center intact in order to play these games. So, because it'd be a little dicey.
So have you ever seen the movie Yes Man? Yes. That was an interesting example of what I'm talking about, right? It just, he said yes to, and then, remember he said yes to the Iranian bride, the mail order bride.
I don't remember it that specific.
You don't remember that?
But I know there was like some yeses were good yeses because they were engaging him in possibility. And some yeses were, it didn't go terribly, but if you have free will, you can have the experience of it.
Well, and I think that's like, I guess what I'm saying is, if most of us learned what we believe about relationships from our parents, which is incidentally why most of us end up getting into relationship with someone who most resembles our parents, as the saying goes. And you don't want to repeat that pattern. You want to explore what's truly possible and make your own free will choice. Because most people who are just in reaction or in to the learned belief system about relationships that they learn from their parents, they actually don't have free will. They have free won't in that moment.
Reacting.
Yeah, it's mostly what I won't do than what I will do.
Or I'll never accept this behavior ever again. And sometimes those are good standards.
Sometimes they are, but I think you can't evaluate that unless you know yourself.
Exactly. And that's why, Bradshaw, I think this is John, but Dr. Bradshaw came up with the imago therapy. And the point is to become your own whole self through the contrast of your partner, of what you've called in to bring up your biggest triggers to your conscious mind, because it's going to affect you emotionally the most. That's why relationships are so compelling, is like relationships, money, all these kind of things, where someone just can't see their way through it. They're like, oh, like I love this person, but I can't stand this thing. And like, oh, what's that wound? What's that trigger? What needs to be made whole within you? What emotions were you not able to feel? But so that imago therapy is specifically to use your relationships as a catalyst to your own wholeness,
to develop yourself,
And so however you develop yourself, like in our programs, TMIC, resourcing method, it's all about this empowerment of the self. What are the tools and resources that weren't there before in your life that you can now use to empower yourself to make empowering decisions? And then instead of fixing, which is a lot of the beginning stages for people, I need to fix this, I need to fix that, something's wrong, something's broken, I need it to be fixed, to play, to fun, to possibility, so we're always like, this is the part where most people are going to come in, this is the problem, and I fix it. But then we do want to move towards possibility, where your beliefs aren't the hamstring to your possibility. We're like, but this is true, because beliefs, the reason they're there as humans is because we don't trust enough. We need something to grab onto so we can control it, so we can feel like I've got a handle on this life thing, because this is what's true. And so the more we're like this, the more life will validate your reality with experiences. And then you're like, see, it's true because this and this and this happened. At some point it gets boring, or it just gets too hard. And then you want to like unclench and just be like, okay, I'm willing to not believe this. Who would you be if you weren't that?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Like, that's where it starts to get alive.
We were talking before we jumped on today about this quote, which I'm going to just read from Terence McKenna, because I think it's quite sort of illuminating to what we're talking about. And he says, how can we know who is the other until we know who is the self? And so basically he's saying, how can you know who you're in relationship with if you don't know yourself? I mean, that's just another way of phrasing it. And as we've mentioned on a couple of episodes, Jenna and I are opening and launching a course or a workshop, an interactive, dynamic, live, but online workshop in the fall of 2025, in September of 2025, called The Jungle and the Gardener, which is why we kind of renamed this podcast that, which is a metaphor for the masculine and feminine. And the whole workshop is all about sex and relationships, and we deal with these type of ontological conversations, these types of conversations that are really at the source and the heart of defining the nature and the quality of your relationships, beginning with the relationship of yourself, but then also in relationship to others. So it's good for singles, it's good for couples. If you want to deepen your relationship with someone else, we talk about all the juicy stuff that is not safe for work. We get into the different topics, but we also get into the depth of what it means to be human. And I just come back to this quote when I think about this: how can we know who is the other until we know the self? And that's going to be one of the important things that we're going to help people really dive into through The Jungle and the Gardener. And it will strengthen your relationship. It'll make it become more alive. If you're not in a relationship, it will make your dating life much more interesting and vibrant. It'll open up new possibilities for you, because you're not going to be beholden to the programming, to the algorithms of how you learned relationships should be according to your parents. You're going to be able to break out of those cycles.
To your parents. And then what I see a lot of when I've been talking about dating with either peers or clients is there's your parents, the reactions you've made, the defenses you've cultivated from that parental unit, which is inevitable. And then there's your dating experiences. And so as you've learned to relate to others from your defenses, which could also be called beliefs, like the fear, like you have a fear and then you create a defense to protect yourself from that relationship, to protect yourself from hurt. But those form debris. It's almost like a residue over time. Oh, I can't trust this and I can't trust that. Well, when I was vulnerable that one time, then I got hurt. And it's just like the blocks to intimacy get thicker and thicker and more true. And that's what I see a lot of. And that's what I help with a lot. Like, okay, well, what if we heal this? And what if we let that go? And what if you unclench from needing to control that outcome? Who would you be without that thought? That these are all letting those beliefs go like yarn, just letting it untangle and just letting it be, so that life in yourself can start to express itself. But I think what makes our conversation so important is it's not enough people say that. Hey, as you let this go, instead of just fixing all the time, more aliveness, more you is going to emerge in that space. It isn't nothingness. You're not just going to sit on a bench and be like, oh, I feel so peaceful, I need to do nothing. Like, aliveness will move through you. And those
Which is what we're all interested in, is aliveness.
Yeah. Like that's why you're drinking, and that's why you're, or
blowing up your life. People blow up their life to get alive, to feel alive.
Yeah, to feel excitement.
Yeah.
And so it's false aliveness.
Yeah. But they're seeking aliveness.
Exactly. But to say, hey, by the way, you need to be able to feel vulnerable. You need to be able to feel safe enough to have enough self-trust. We go back to self-relationship, to go on these dating experiences or to deepen your current relationship, your current marriage. And like, I work with a lot of leaders too, and now they're at work, and okay, well, now how do you be with this person who's taking everything personally, and how do you relate to that? Like all of these skills in your primary relationships are going to expand beautifully into every other relationship. Your kids, that's the other big topics. Like I work with a lot of with parents. So as you become more you, they're much better parents. They're not seeing something they reject in themselves and trying to fix it in their kid or living vicariously through their kid. They're like, okay, I'm whole and complete as much as possible. And now they can be themselves. So I think another big belief to call out is like needing someone to be different for you to be okay.
And does that tie into the sort of trope that we all hear that opposites attract? Would that be related to that, do you think?
In this case, this person needs to change. It's the point in the relationship where the opposite stops being hot. Because the opposite might attract you until it doesn't. And then you're like...
Then it's just annoying.
Then it's annoying. Now it's something you want to fix.
Yeah.
So I remember dating someone a long time ago, and he was in his 20s. This woman was very emotionally unstable, like needed medication. And I don't say that in a disparaging way, just never got the help she needed. And at first he was like, oh, this is so exciting. I never know what I'm going to get. And then when you're in a relationship, it didn't work out so great. But like that thing that was exciting might not be relationship material. So I would say opposites attract in terms of we're going to be attracted to something we're not, because we do inherently want to be more of ourselves. And so if I want to be with someone who's a little more outgoing and and then I want to be that more myself, if you never combine and you never regulate together, where that person also learns to become more chill, and now you're both more centered humans, you're not trying to fix each other though. So I think that's true because we're seeking wholeness. So you're going to attract, you don't want to be with the same person. You don't want to be with yourself. Like you want to be with someone who's going to pull you into being a more expressed version of you or a more empowered version.
Do you ever see the comedy TV show, The United States of Tara?
I love it.
With Toni Collette.
Brilliant.
Right? And she had like 9 personalities or something like that.
Yeah.
And her husband never knew what he was going to get. Neither did the kids. It's kind of a comedic version of what you're talking about there in a way.
Yeah. Oh, and that was such a good version of like looking at, in that case, that's a trauma response where those personalities come out, but we're all holding all those personalities. Like that's what internal family systems is, which used to be called parts work, which was a thing before he made it a thing. But we all have all those voices in our head. It's not crazy. Like you have the accountant that wants everything to be right. And then you have like the wild person who's like, screw this, I do what I want. Like they're all in there. And we want to have harmony with it all and do all this wholeness thing. But in relationship, we're going to naturally attract somebody that is going to poke our wounds if they're there so that we can see it. So if we see it as an opportunity. So I was just working with a couple and I said, look, either way, you guys stay together. I have no agenda. I want you to be whole people. Yeah. And so either you're going to bring this residue into your next relationship. So let's just either way, clear the cobwebs, clear the residue so that you can make a conscious decision. And that's the thing, right? Yep. Okay. When this person does this, what does that bring up in you? Well, but it's so inflamed at that point that it's very fiery and the beliefs are so, this needs to be true. Like you need to do this for me to feel that. Okay. But what if you could feel safe and whole and complete? Now, could you maybe forgive that thing over here? And now they can be them. Oh, and now that they could be them, now they're more prone to want to help you. Yeah. It's not coming from their lack. It's coming from an honest place of just like, hey, now you're making a request and not a demand. So that was all very complicated. Further steps down the road about how to act, how this all comes into place of you think the belief needs to be true. You think that person needs to agree with you. You think this thing needs to happen for you to be happy. Those are when beliefs really are the worst, right? Like where your belief is causing your pain. And if you're willing to let go of it, you can start to see how you're not going to be toxic, independent, meeting your own needs, but you can start to see how you've been needing this person to fill a void they were never responsible for, which could be what they call the mother wound or the father wound or whatever. And that could be overly identified with too. I see that a lot of like, well, it's my mother wound. I'm like, okay, but at some point, when do you want to heal from?
We love the stories. We love to stay in those stories. And how powerful beliefs are is even beginning with the belief that I'm not enough or that I don't have enough or that my life isn't, like that's a belief too, before you even get into the sub-beliefs of
the most toxic belief.
Because then if you think about it, if you're thinking, well, my life isn't enough, and that's a belief, then there's nothing that could ever make it whole and complete, because it's the belief that my life isn't enough that will always still dominate. You will fill your life with more people, more experiences, more money, more stuff, more whatever, but you haven't addressed the belief. The belief is I'm not enough. So you're always going to be in this hamster wheel. In the case of relationships, if you don't believe you're relationship material, if you don't believe that relationships can be fulfilling, if you don't believe they can, people who have beliefs like, oh, now I'm in my 40s or now I'm in my 50s, so my sex life is over. That's a belief. I'm friends with Margot Anand. She's 82. She has a massively vibrant sex life. She talks about it all the time. She travels the world. She has boyfriends in different countries, and she's been, a leader in the Tantra field since the 70s, early 80s. She doesn't have the belief that at 82, she can't have a thriving, fulfilling sex life. That's just not a belief she holds. So guess what her life looks like? Not that.
Yep. They can empower you or they can keep you stuck. But that fundamental belief of not feeling enough, the goalposts are always going to move. And
always move.
That's the true of most of my clients is they've done all the things, they look good, they have all the things, but they don't feel because that I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. It's so deep and there's so many layers between, they're going to think it's the relationship that's the problem. Well, it's clearly that jerk who's your divorced ex, it's like clearly it's their fault. And if we really want to empower our lives, we have to be willing to see where we've related to our own disempowered story. And then relationship can start to build it back up if you let it, because you can just start to play with life and let people show you more parts of you than like the good parts you didn't know. I didn't know it was that adventurous. Like the opportunity of relationship is definitely expansion. And definitely we talked about play if you let it. But if your beliefs are so mucky and coming from fear, which most of them will at that point, that's all you're going to experience.
Another thing that you said a few minutes ago that I wanted to pick up on as well is the role that our emotional life plays in beliefs, because often our beliefs are in support of a emotional state that we are habituatedly stuck in. We don't have emotional sobriety. We think other people are responsible for our emotions. You made me feel is, a classic one. You made me feel like this. You made me do this. And so we don't have agency when we are giving our power away to, but that's a belief. This is a belief that, that other people are responsible for how we feel. And so when we talk about emotional sobriety in the Jungle and the Gardener work, that's all about owning your own emotional autonomy. Nobody makes you feel anything, and you're not responsible for how they feel. And that is a fundamental shift in perspective. And suddenly you have to take on, you have to be responsible for how you feel. And then you can get curious about what's the belief under this feeling? Why is this feeling continuing to come up in these situations or in these circumstances?
I think in my work and how our work complements, the first step would be, like I say, it's not your fault and nothing's wrong with you a lot. We weren't taught how to feel grief. We weren't taught how to feel healthy anger. We weren't, that these are all generative things that we can,
how to even feel our emotions.
This is the thing, right? So to even go to say, okay, you need to be responsible for your feelings, I think can sound almost punitive, like telling a 6-year-old to do algebra or something. Like it's because so many people haven't been taught how to feel. So that probably the biggest thing I do is help adults feel feeling. At that point, that was this feeling. And how did that feel in your body? Well, that feels like this. And so as we can start to empower ourselves, once you learn how to, it's like a language, you'll know how to feel it. You'll know how to feel your feelings. And then instead of needing to protect yourself from feeling disappointment, so therefore you don't feel too much enthusiasm, which is a really common mechanism people do, like, ooh, that felt bad, so I won't feel good. I won't try to have positive expectations because that felt bad. But to be able to feel all feelings, incredibly empowering, and then allows us to do that. Well, okay, I felt this way in this environment, but what's here for me?
Well, and it's incredibly transformative of relationships if you have two parties willing to come from that place. Because now if you think about how everything changes, if I'm not responsible for how you feel, you're not responsible for how I feel. Now I feel safe actually expressing how I feel. And I'm no longer trying to hedge what I'm saying because I'm not responsible for how you're going to feel about what I'm saying.
Think it means. And so, if I say,
I can speak truth.
Yes. I just had this with a French, like the guy was like, well, once I give you this money, then I'm afraid you'll leave because that happened in another relationship. And, but he could have not said that because like, oh, what do you make that mean about me? And taking personally and getting it all flamed, having the safety. And then furthermore, like to be able to reflect to the person, do you feel safe right now? I'm noticing you seem a little agitated and you're trying to control your environment. And that might not be taken the best in the moment, but when you have that dynamic, that other person trusts you enough that you're not saying it to mess with them or power play. They trust you enough, the opposite of gaslighting, to be like, ooh, this isn't who I really want to be right. Oh, you're right. Oh yeah, I'm not feeling really safe right now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that letter from the IRS this morning, that really screwed with my system. Let me, now what? Which is called resourcing, right? Like now how do I get resourced back?
No, so everyone listening, as we wrap up today, we'll talk a lot more about beliefs on different episodes and probably in very specific topics or themes. But we just wanted to have a conversation today about the importance of beliefs and how it fundamentally is driving all of our behavior, our thought life, how we react to life versus be a response to it. And in the case of relationships, it is the source essence. It is you're at I'd say ground zero of how your relationship occurs to you is based on your belief system, and then it affects how you perceive the nature of your relationship, how you perceive the other, how you perceive yourself in that relationship. All fundamentally hinges around what you believe, and what you believe isn't the truth. It's just what you've learned. It's true for you, but you probably don't know why it's true for you because you probably picked up these beliefs from observing your parents and the dynamics when you were growing up. And now they become so ingrained, you see the world through that lens. So you can transform your...
friends that then agree with you because you think being agreed with is necessary for intimacy.
Yeah, they're your people because they agree with you. Those aren't necessarily your people. Those are just people who agree with old belief systems that may or may not be serving you.
Yeah. And so you can blow it all up in a good way. But I want to add at the end of this, though, the more curious you can be about your beliefs and the less you can like lock in on them.
And playful.
Be like, because I definitely have a lot of beliefs, but I'm also now willing to be wrong in order for more possibility to be possible. And that's been way more.
Well, I would just say, are you even wrong? But I don't know if it's wrong.
Like, not like, right, I have to be right. Like, I'm willing to be wrong in terms of that might not be the truthiest true thing. Like the be all and end all of truthiness. That's how I get around the truth conversation. It's truthy.
Truthiness, yeah.
But I was going to say this. So in relationship, as I've been dating in this co-creative way, if you need one person, this is Esther Perel stuff, you need one person to meet all your needs, that belief. Okay. But as I've been like, life is my source.
Belief in the one.
But even just like, to me, my relationship with life is my source. So when I detract from it being this one relationship, I need to get this feeling from this person and whatever that is that I've locked back into form. When I let it go again, and I'm like, oh, I wonder where I'm going to get that from. I really, really like that. I don't have to hold on to it, but like, ooh, I bet I choose that. I desire that. It comes in the funniest ways. Like I just had the funniest week of like ways that happen that make absolutely no sense, which are synchronicities of other options to get those needs met that I would have never thought of. And that's when life starts to become more fun. So when we can start to let beliefs be held lightly, we could still choose things and we could still believe in things. You and I have beliefs like we're enough. I believe that we're enough. I believe that life is serving us. Those are beliefs.
I treat most of my beliefs like suggestions. Like I've been known, and people have told me this, and it drives them crazy, by the way, and some people it drives them crazy, that I change my beliefs like this. Like I will argue with someone to the death about something if I believe it. But if they make a good point, I'll drop that belief in a heartbeat. Be like, damn, I guess I don't believe that anymore. And it makes people crazy because it's like, how could you be so ardent in like holding on to this thing and then drop it? Because I'm truly not attached to my beliefs. I'm really not.
In that moment,
they're like tools. Yeah, they're cognitive tools for me to kind of navigate life. But if at any point the belief doesn't serve me anymore, I'm happy to drop it. Some of the most strongest beliefs people have, spiritual beliefs, religious beliefs. My gosh, I've gone through so many different religious and spiritual belief systems, and people think, I probably think, how do you do that? Not that they want to do it, they probably look down on it in most cases. But I'm just like, no, I'm on a journey. For me, I'm on this journey of creating my life, experiencing life. I treat life like a phenomenological sort of exercise, and I find it a powerful place to be, but it's not easily lived by most people because for so many people, their beliefs are absolute, and unmovable objects in their life.
And there's an authentic expression, I believe, in each person, that their past and their geography and their human suit and all of it is built to have them have this authentic.
Yeah.
But I think you need to drop everything so that you can kind of hand select the things that are really authentic to your highest as a natural being. And that's what fulfillment is, really organic and not having to be curated by the world or not having to be conditional. So that's the goal of this amazing aliveness emanating from presence. That sounds like a fairy tale to some people, but it's not.
It is possible to it's a thing that's possible and it's accessible to you. So we're going to wrap it up there, wanting to thank everyone for joining us. Check out thejungleandthegardener.com if you want to know more information about mine and Jenna's program this fall, September 2025. We'll be talking a lot more about it over the summer, and we are so happy that you joined us today, and we will see you on another episode of The Jungle and the Gardener on the most important conversations.
That concludes this episode of The Most Important Conversations. This in-depth conversation could set you on the path to self-improvement, which is essential if you want to be an effective leader and take meaningful action in your life. If you enjoyed this episode and want more of these stimulating discussions, you can find them at TMICglobal.com. Remember, the world is at a crossroads right now. You can't afford to waste this opportunity to take charge of your life, build meaningful relationships with others, and co-create a brighter tomorrow. Thank you for listening. See you on the next one.